Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pet Working. I'm Peter Kenseth, and I am joined today by one of the members of one of the founding families of pet food and pet nutrition, a brand I think we're all familiar with, Wellness. Jim Scott III, who is now with RAWZ Pet Care, but Jim's story goes back to one of the oldest treat brands in the country, and Old Mother Hubbard, which was actually founded by his grandfather. And we're going to take a trip today through the history, in some ways, of one of the most prolific pet nutrition brands out there, and an upstart brand that has stemmed from the Wellness name. So Jim, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me on Pet Working.
Thank you very much for having me, Pete.
So Jim and I actually we were introduced. He met one of my close friends who was actually featured on an earlier episode of Pet Working. My friend Andrew, who was on talking about his experience rescuing Roxy. And to update folks, Roxy is doing well. She is at home with Andrew in New Hampshire and adjusting to life in the United States after coming up from Colombia. But Andrew was out shopping for Roxy and Roxy's brother Raylan, and ran into Jim. What store were you? I forget the store you were at, Jim.
I was at Mac and Copper's Pet Supply Outlet right in Portsmouth.
Great. And so Jim was there promoting RAWZ, and Andrew was kind enough to introduce him to me. And I'm definitely familiar with RAWZ. It's a brand Peony and I have used in the past. But one of the things I think a lot of people don't know, Jim, is that RAWZ stems from Wellness, and your family was the founder of both Old Mother Hubbard and Wellness.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little background. So my name is Jim Scott III. I'm named after my grandfather and my dad. My grandfather actually was in the Navy, went to college on the GI Bill after World War II, went to the University of Maryland, and he studied poultry engineering. And he always had a pretty entrepreneurial streak in him. So he actually ended up buying the Old Mother Hubbard Biscuit Company in Gloucester, Mass. And transitioned that fully to making dog biscuits with his background in animal nutrition. And so that's still around. Probably familiar with that. I've eaten more peanut ears than any human being alive. They actually taste pretty good. But so my dad, my grandmother, my dad's mother passed away when my father was in college. And my grandfather obviously had a tough time with that. And so my dad actually planned to go to law school, and he was going to be a lawyer, I guess. But he decided to work for the family, help my grandfather out. And then my aunt and my uncle, my two uncles, ended up working for the company too. So it was really a family business. And they had really good growth with Old Mother Hubbard, and eventually led to they introduced a product called Nura. I believe that was in the early 90s, and did pretty well, and kind of went from a treat, the biscuits, to a nutritionally complete diet. And then from there, the explosion of humanization of pets and pet parents and things like that was kind of exploding. And my dad thought there was a really good opportunity for more of a quality, holistic type of pet food. So he developed the Wellness Company with a team of animal nutritionists in the late 90s. They had dog and cat food. And that grew really, really, really fast and had pretty explosive growth. And they would chug along with that. And I was still young. I'm 40, I'll be 41 in a week or so, but I was in middle school when Wellness launched. I don't really remember much. And then it was getting big, and it was weird to see it all over the place and have it, and everyone knew it, and it was kind of cool. I would go to trades with my grandfather, and I ate a lot of Old Mother Hubbard peanut ears.
So you had, so your grandfather, the Old Mother Hubbard company dates back to like the 1920s,
Yeah, I think
you know,
the company
by some.
itself started in 1927 or 8, and then my grandfather bought the company in 1960 and ended up building a factory or moving the factory from Gloucester to Lowell. They had a fire, and then my dad went and worked there, and his siblings, and so it was really a family affair. And then wellness
Your dad
stemmed from
developed a
that.
passion for pet care while he's working alongside your grandfather at Old Mother Hubbard, and you know he launches Neura, as you talk about, and then wellness. And I mean, wellness, you know, for a lot of people, I think, you know, you talk about the humanization of pet food and premiumization. They're one of the first brands to really do that, and that all stems from your father.
Well, you know, I remember, yeah, it was funny. I remember I was in, you know, probably middle school, beginning of high school, and wellness was starting to launch, and my dad would have meetings in my kitchen with a couple animal nutritionists, and they'd have all these concepts and stuff, and they really looked at actually how people buy baby food, because it's really analogous with, you know, the person that's buying isn't the actual user or the eater of the food. So it's like a parent, and they love their baby and they want to do the best, and they tried to mimic that with, they wanted to do their best for their pet too. So it was kind of along those lines, but it was a really cool thing to see from the beginning. And I didn't really work at wellness. It's funny. My dad always wanted me to do my own thing. So, you know, I did some odd jobs and stuff, and I was studying finance in college. In my junior year of college, actually, so this was 2005, my brother fell off a balcony, a third-story balcony. He had a spinal cord injury, and he's paralyzed. He's doing great now, though. He has 2 daughters. He's a high school math teacher, and great kid and doing great. But you know, that shook my family up, and it was pretty devastating. And you know, my dad was really busy with wellness, and then 15 months later, I had a horrific car accident. I had a traumatic brain injury, and I'm lucky to be alive. I was minimally conscious for, I think, 6 weeks, and you know, it's not like the movies do. You don't wake up and do cartwheels. You know, I woke up, couldn't really talk, I think, and after a while, my recovery was amazing, and my family was like, my mom. I remember my mom was like to my dad, "I'm exhausted. I need some help." And so he was like, you know, you're right. So he stepped back, and he was still owned wellness, and he was consulting with wellness, and he was not in day to day as much. But eventually, my family was exhausted, and they said they were going to just get out of pet food. So they sold to they had taken a private equity firm as a partner, and I think I was in high school. And then they had an exit strategy, and it was about that time anyway. So they ended up selling to a holding company in the Midwest. And so then he was done. I mean, he had a non-compete, and he did some consulting, but he was not really working day to day. And but the mind was always in pet food. I remember I had just gotten out of the rehab hospital in Boston. I was going to therapy in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and we were on my way home, and it was kind of funny. And he saw this pet store grand opening on the right side of the road, and he was like, "Oh, I want to go in there real quick." And he was still consulting with wellness, and so he wanted to go talk about wellness. And they had just opened, and it was funny because I was just at their 18-year anniversary, 15-year anniversary this past weekend, and it was bringing back memories. But so we went in there. I was in a bathing suit. I was in aquatic therapy, and my dad was helping me in the pool. He had like a wet t-shirt on. He was might have like shorts on, so he looked like a total scrub. And he walked in, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing? Beautiful store. Have you thought about bringing wellness in?" She was like, "We're thinking about it. I haven't really met a sales rep yet." He goes, "Well, you know, I'd love to talk about the product with it." And so he started talking to her, and she was like, "Well, who are you?" And he was like, "Oh, Jim, I'm with wellness." And she was like, "Oh, you're a salesman?" He goes, "Oh, no, I actually started it." And it was funny. So she didn't really believe him. But so, and then now I've been calling on her for RAWZ, which has been kind of trying to full circle. But so anyways, so I had my accident in July of 2006.
That shakes up your family big time. I mean,
Yeah. So, and obviously devastated the family, and took pet food industry. I mean, it was great for us, and it allowed me to focus on recovery because I was fortunate. I didn't have to work. my family could drive into rehab and stuff like that. But so eventually my brother and I were doing well, and my brother actually was living in Manchester going to grad school. And he said, I think I want to get a dog, Dad. And he was like, oh, Andy, why don't you get a service dog? So we looked into service dogs. My brother, he's a good guy and he's really great kid. And he was like, I want to get a puppy. I want to play with a puppy. And so my dad was like, it's going to be kind of hard, being in a wheelchair and living in Manchester. He goes, but, if you want a puppy, so he got the puppy. Puppy's doing great. Now the puppy's 10, which is crazy. So they looked into service dogs though, and they're really expensive. So if you're in a private pay, all in, it's about $50,000 to acquire the dog, then go through the training program and everything. So that's why most people link up with a nonprofit to get the service dog and get help with it. But so my dad said, wow, this is really a good opportunity to help people get service dogs. And the wheels were turning. He had an idea for the raw pet food craze and minimally processed, freeze dried, things like that, was really taken off. And there was really a huge gap between, a high meat, dry food to raw. There was a big grain-free food to raw. There was this big gap. And my father thought, well, what can we find something else more closer to raw, more the health benefits of a raw diet in that range, and introduce something. And that's where the idea for RAWZ came from. So it's the next best thing to a raw diet, minimally processed. And we use nothing rendered. So rendering is a heavily processed, high heat, long time period cooking process to separate the protein and the fat. And we wanted to figure out a way to create dry food, low moisture, without using rendering, because the heat really depletes the amino acid profile on the protein. Right. So we did a lot of research with a team out at Kansas State on different methods of getting moisture out of the protein without damaging the amino acid profile. So we settled on dehydration. Dehydrating chicken as a concentrated protein source is a much gentler process and a much more bioavailable protein. And that was the impetus. Well, we were like, wow, we can make a dry food that's shelf stable, that is much more, bioavailable for the animal and better for the pet. So it's not as good as raw, but it's a lot better than a product with rendered meals in it. So what we did was we did a few test production runs to see if we could even make it, because you get it to make a dry food and a killer, you have to hold it together and without using grains. And actually we don't use potatoes either, which is a pretty good binder. We had to develop a whole new formula and cooking process, and we were successful with that. Took about a year, and then we launched RAWZ at Global Pet Food and Pet Expo in 2015. And it's interesting because it's been a slower build, because we, as a distribution strategy, we have really such a small team, because we didn't take any outside investors, because we want to give all the money to charity. And you have money from coming from somewhere else, they're going to guide some of the profits, or they want to return. So
over time you kind of increase. I think when we first linked up and we're chatting, you mentioned you started off giving 10% of profits to help people get service dogs, and then then you realize hey, we can also be giving to spinal cord victims.
Well, it was interesting because we initially started and we were going to give 10% of the profits to service dogs exclusively, and then I started working there. I was working in finance, and I started working with my dad, and I was like, what if we donated I go to a day program in Portsmouth, saved my life. It's unbelievable. It's called the Krempels Center, Krempels Center. Well, now it's called the David Krempels Brain Injury Center, but it's an unbelievable place. And I was like, can we donate some money there? And we're like, we should do 10% to the Krempels Center as well. And then my brother played sled hockey at UNH. Out of the wheelchair, it's adaptive hockey, unbelievable sport, and with a group of Northeast Passage. And so we were like, we should donate some money there too. So we got up to like 30% to charity. And then my mom was like, well, we should donate to Spalding Rehab Hospital, because you and Andy were there. And we were blessed when they sold wellness. So my parents did well, and there was really no financial motivator for the business. So when we got established, we were like, we can give 100% of the profits to charity. So we gave to Carnival Center, Northeast Passage, multiple service dog groups, one in Canada, one in Eastern US, one in Western US, and Spalding Rehab Hospital. So we give 100% of the profits to charity now. We've given, since 2015, $2.7 million. So it's been pretty
That's like the human bone of pet food. You make a good product and
well, it's funny, like in a roundabout way, I think it's kind of full circle, because me and Andy had just amazing services and our recoveries have been incredible. And a lot of that was because we could focus on that. My parents could support us, drive us to and from rehab appointments and stuff. But also my dad said, listen, I want you to just focus on your rehab. So I was in day rehab every day for 2 years, 5 days a week. I wasn't worried about, I was working like 1 day a week. I didn't have to worry about supporting myself. And we were just blessed to have the financial backing to do that. And so we wanted to offer the gifts that we were exposed to because of that to other people. And we got it through, it was kind of ironic. We were given that opportunity because of the pet food industry, my family's involvement. So then my dad said, we can only give so much money to charity. We only have so much money, but why don't we use our knowledge in the pet food industry to give to other people in the same way that we were helped? And it kind of has worked out really, really well. So it's been a blessing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing. And, really cool that, your dad was able to go from founding, what still is a super influential brand. I mean, I think, after Purina, Mars, Hills, Blue Buffalo, I think Wellness is the 5th largest pet food brand in at least in the US. It's not the world, but having that expertise, and obviously, it took tragic circumstances for your family to kind of have this come about, but it's amazing to see, you giving back, focusing on putting a high quality, minimally processed, all natural product out there for pet parents. And then at the same time, like you said, recognizing the gifts that, the pet food industry was able, the opportunity for healing and recovery that the pet food industry was able to give you, and giving that back to other people. It's just a really cool story in my book. And I think, when we look at, the virtues of the RAWZ product, you're right. I mean, so many people want to feed raw, want to feed all freeze dried, want to feed fresh refrigerated, but it's very expensive, and it's also not as convenient as kibble. I think one of the big takeaways we saw at Super Zoo this spring is that most companies out there are marketing raw, freeze dried, fresh refrigerated as toppers, and kibble isn't going away. But if you can get, a kibble that, focuses on high protein, that, uses high quality ingredients. We just did an episode with Green America on the benefits of using ingredients sourced from regenerative agriculture, but, keeping that nutrient count high and focus, not processing the food as much to keep the amino acid levels and the micronutrients in the food. That's going to be what drives the best health outcomes for your pets. So it's and to be able to provide that within the convenience of kibble, I think it's a really cool product.
Yeah, well, the big thing obviously for us, the personal cause is hugely influential, because I don't know that my parents would be doing this otherwise. And I mean, the motivation is there because of, the blessing that we had. But really the reason we're in business is because of the food itself. I mean, it's the next best thing to a raw diet, but it's, so like, the benefit of the raw diet, but the convenience of, a shelf stable food. And it's interesting because, there was such a big push towards that raw benefit or mindset of feeding ECR, like certain inclusions of freeze dried and dry recipes, or raw boost. Different brands have certain things, but so we wanted to just focus on the protein quality. There was such a focus on protein levels, but with us it's more protein quality. Not all proteins created equal.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And you mentioned you started out with dehydrated chicken. You've since expanded into other formulations. You have a salmon formulation now. You have a
So
beef formulation.
Initially, we launched. We had two recipes. We had a poultry recipe, which is the first 7 ingredients are real poultry protein: chicken, turkey, and organ meat. And then we have an additional formula that's the same poultry, but also it's salmon inclusion. So it's with salmon, it's really good, skin health and coat and some variety. You can feed, you can alternate because they're the same nutritional profile. But then obviously poultry allergy is huge in the pet food industry. And, it's probably the number one, it's usually a protein source that the allergy comes from, but chicken is one of the highest. So that eliminated a lot of pets because we had poultry in both our recipes at first. So then we launched a duck and then a salmon that are limited recipes that are chicken free, which is really, they've done really well. And then our wet foods have really, really done well. It's actually in our cat food our cat business is probably bigger than our dog business.
Really?
And I think because cats are smaller, so the cost per day to feed them is less. But generally, cat food shoppers, because they buy in smaller quantities, are much more prone to switch or try new things, particularly within the wet space. So they kind of, elbow shop, and they're much more likely to try something new. And we having the 100% profit share gets the interest. And then when they feed the product and see how amazing it is, they stick. So we've had amazing success with cat food. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it is difficult, and one of the things I wanted to bring up, obviously RAWZ is, a super premium, ultra premium product. It's not inexpensive, but, we were talking, it's not that you're, that price point isn't subsidizing the donations. You're not charging a premium so you can donate.
We always wanted to make sure, like, we've been blessed. And the nonprofit at the RAWZ fund, so the philanthropic aspects of the company, is 100%, our choice, and we're doing that. It's not because we're charging more for our food and we have money left over. Our margin is no higher than anyone else, really. And it's, if you look at the ingredient deck, you're getting that quality, that much meat in the food. First 7 in the original formula and 6 in the salmon formula, but are real protein sources. So it's the food itself, and we just are lucky that my parents don't even actually pay themselves. So they give all their labor.
They're not only donating the profits, they're donating their time as well. With I mean, it speaks to your the impact that your situation and your brother's situation had on your family, and how genuine that desire to give back and is. I think it's really cool to see.
Well, too, it's interesting. Like, I don't really tell this story often, but so we had a yellow lab growing up named Boomer, and we were always busy playing sports, and my parents were working like crazy, and so my mom would never let us get a dog, and then she might have told a white lie that she was allergic. I don't know, but so we didn't get a dog. So one time when I was in, so it was probably 1996. I was in like middle school, and I was like, Andy, because my brother's arguably the favorite. He's the youngest kid. I was like, tell mom the only thing you want is a dog. Nothing else will make you happy. And what do you know? We got a dog. But so that it was great. But this dog was like unbelievable. It's a yellow lab, food crazy. Like, if you ever seen the movie Marley and Me, that was him. His name was Boomer. he would steal everything, but he was a great dog, you know, loved the family. And then when my brother had his accident, we were really nervous because he would steal food from everyone, and my brother would eat his meals like on his lap tray. And the dog, it was like he had a sixth sense. He would never steal from my brother. It was amazing. He would sit next to him and stare at him while he ate, and drool would be coming out of his mouth. And then, like, I had my accident shortly after, so we were both in the house for a while together. And this dog was like our sidekick. He was unbelievable, and it was just like, you know, it was unworldly. It was like a sixth sense he had. He was like a companion. It wasn't a service dog. So we saw, you know, the power of a pet to a person in need. And that was really the driver of getting into the service dog space. But it was always funny because when I got out, I was in a wheelchair for a while as well. And then I got out of my wheelchair eventually, and I was doing well, and I was having a tough time, and I didn't even want to get up some days. So my dad said, you know, Jim, you should take Boomer with you, because I had moved out of my house. So he moved in with me in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I remember one time I used to come home for lunch from work, and I would make my sandwich, and I could see him over in the pillow laying there. And he was older at the time. He was probably 11 or 12. And I was making the sandwich, and I was like, oh, I gotta get some mustard. And I looked at the fridge, and I looked at Boomer, and I was like, oh no, probably shouldn't get the mustard. And I'm like, nah, he's old. He won't steal from me. He knows I'm slowed down. So I left the sandwich, and I turned around, I went to the fridge, I got the mustard, and then all of a sudden I heard my plate smash. He had got it off his pillow and stole my sandwich, knocked the plate off the table. And so I wasn't even upset though, because I realized I was doing well enough that I was fair game again. So he stole my food, but it was kind of funny. And it was just like one of the things, like, it was amazing to be unconditionally loved and accepted by a dog. Like, he didn't look at me like I was anything different, you know, and it was just like, I felt like I was a whole person again, almost. And it was amazing. But so he lived with me for quite a few years, and then he was 14. His back leg gave out. I had to put him down. But it was just like
14 years though.
Yeah, it was like a thing, like first-hand experience of how much the power of pet. I mean, when I learned how to walk without a cane, only so I could walk my dog alone, because when I first had a cane, then I had a walker, and so I couldn't hold this leash because I only had really one good hand at the time. My left hand was not of much use, so my dad would take him for walks with me, and I wanted to walk him alone. So I worked so hard to get rid of the cane so I could hold this leash. And it was just it was the spiritual thing, you know, the dog. I mean, obviously I got to give credit to the therapist and physical therapy and all that, but if Blue Cross Blue Shield could have been paying him, he would have made a lot of money, because he was like my therapy dog. But
yeah, no, I mean, it's what makes it easy to work in this industry, right? You know, and why I love pet care and animal health so much is, you know, everybody has that special connection, you know, with their. I was like you. My mom didn't let us get a dog growing up either, and when I finally got Peony, we adopted her 6.5 years ago. It completely changed my life, and it's so. Yeah, and I'm sure you feel this with the RAWZ every day. You know, that there is that passion that goes into, you know, I am helping someone, you know, and their dog have a better life, right? You know, you're creating food that, you know, is allowing those animals to be healthier, that is allowing, you know, that connection between the dog and or the cat and their parent. And it's just so easy to identify around that love that everybody shares. I think one of the truest quotes out there is, everybody thinks they have the best dog in the world, and everybody is right.
That's true.
You know,
it's funny. You were talking about your friend Andrew, and when I met him, and I do a lot of product demos at area pet stores, and usually it's on the weekend or whatever prime time in a store. And so my friends would be like, oh, let's go golf. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing a demo on Saturday. And I'd be like, oh, that stinks, man. You work on the weekends. But then I'm like, it's like not even really work. I mean, I talk to people about their pets. So you ask someone about their pet, they're in a good mood. And then I don't have to do anything. I can just sit there and listen. You know, it's great. But of course, I got to fight the urge to take pictures of my dog out of my pocket, but it's not about me.
Yeah, no, you know, the thing is, what I've learned though is everybody likes seeing it. You know, I when I started working in you know, in it was very life-changing. It was, a big change for me professionally too, because I'd consulted in pet long before I had Peony, but it wasn't until I had Peony that it really became a passion, because everything that I was doing, looking at trends in pet nutrition and pet care and animal health, it all became that much more real. It's like, it's sort of like you can't relate to being a parent, until you are a parent. You can hear people talk about their kids, but it's not until you are a mother or father yourself that you're like, oh, it's like this whole secret world that opens up for you. I had very much the same experience with Peony, because I was like, oh yeah, I get like, and it just becomes tangible and real. And, and from that point on, going to shows like Super Zoo and Global Pet and, what all the other conferences we go to, you realize everybody's there just sharing pictures of, their dogs, their cats, and it's a sense of fun, right? I think it's great. So obviously Boomer's no longer with us. Who's your new dog?
Oh, he's from Georgia. He was a unintentional rescue, but he came up from Georgia when he was like young, and I got him, and his name's Clooney because he looks like George Clooney. He has gray hair. He's a silver fox. He's a stud. He's staring at me right now. He's on the couch, but he's a riot now. And it's funny. He's just a great dog. He actually has a hair diffuse alopecia. He was born with it. So like the hair is like thin. It like breaks off, but he's doing great. Obviously he's great, but now he's going to be 11 in the end of August. So it's crazy. I feel like I'm growing up with him. I got him when I was 30. So I'm 31 years older than him, basically. It's funny though.
But they age in dog years, so he's probably past it by now if we use that.
I still can't keep up with him though, so
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's great. Well, Jim, this has been a fantastic trip through what I think is a really, really amazing story about your family's contributions to the American pet food industry, both at Old Mother Hubbard and then into wellness and now into RAWZ. I guess in closing, where do you see RAWZ going from here? I know you've added the wet food, and we were chatting a few weeks ago about how the big differentiator in your wet food is no use of gums, and that focus on natural and minimally processed. But are you planning on sticking just with dry and wet?
So we have the wet and the dry. We have a couple new items coming out. Kittens. It's they're a little unique nutritional needs, and to more cater to that. And we have a few different formulas coming out to buttress the actual RAWZ line. But we don't want to ever compromise the nutritional quality. So if we can't make something uniquely better or different, we're not just going to make it to make a bigger company. We want the product to sell itself, just the quality of the product. So, and we really want to stay true to our independent pet specialty partners. So most of our new items are pulled from recommendations off them, and we don't throw stuff at them. We get in-store demos, and retailers tell us, a lot of people are asking for X or Y, and we'll look into it. But long term, I think my parents are having a good time, and I like working with my family, and it's been fun. And so we have no plans of going anywhere. And it's funny, like a lot of time, obviously huge acquisition activity in the pet food business, and retailers can sometimes be concerned that we can't stay true to our promise to them. They're like, well, what if someone buys the company and takes it everywhere? We lose, our independent exclusivity or whatever. And the good thing that I can say is, well, no one's going to buy us because there's nothing to buy. It's like they'd be buying the right to give money away. So, that's probably not going to happen. But so it's fun. As long as we're having fun with it, we can make a difference. And I still go to the Crumple Center whenever I can, and I see how amazing that place is, and just adaptive sports improvement in quality of life for people, and I see it. And I mean, if we can help that, we're going to keep going. So it's fun.
It's got to be pretty cool to be able to see, making an impact in a difference in the lives of pets, in the lives of people who've suffered traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury.
Yeah, it's
giving service dogs to people. I mean, you get to, most people would be content, making a quality pet food and seeing the difference that makes. And you're able to do that and then take all the profits and make a difference in so many other people's lives through your charitable donations.
Really cool. We're really blessed to be able to do that. And, I'm extremely lucky. And, I always felt a little bit of, not really guilt, but like, why was I so lucky? I mean, to have the support network I had during my recovery. And it's kind of nice to be able to give back a little bit, but I'll tell you, there is nothing better than hearing, the testimonial from a pet parent. I was actually in Portsmouth maybe a week ago, and someone jogged up the sidewalk, and they're like, "Oh, you're the RAWZ guy, right?" Because he saw me at a demo. He's like, "Yeah, I've been feeding my dog RAWZ for like 2 months," and he was telling me how great his dog's doing. It's like pretty cool, something as simple as that. But we're doing that, but we're also able to share the benefits that we had in our recoveries. It's just really, really great.
For the kitten formula you talked about, is that going to be launching at Super Zoo, or have you launched that already? Or
I'm not entirely sure on the timing as far as when the new stuff. I think it'll probably be shown at Super Zoo, though, I'm guessing. But yeah, so just before we and so like I said, we do sell exclusively through independent pet specialty stores. We have a couple. We'll allow our partners to sell online, so we have a couple online retailers. But if you go to our website, rawznaturalpetfood.com, there's a where to buy page, and you put your zip code in, and all the area retailers will show up, and then there's a link to online retailers or retailers that sell online as well. So yeah, I mean, our goal isn't to be the next wellness, or if we can have fun in the business and work with good people, independents, and our team's good, I don't see an end date. I mean, there's no exit strategy, so it's exciting.
I will look forward to seeing the RAWZ booth at Super Zoo. I know you said you're not personally going to be there, but RAWZ will have a
quite a few of my teammates will be there, so stop by the booth.
Yeah, and Pet Working will be there as well. So for folks watching this, stop by the RAWZ booth at Super Zoo. We're only a month away, and be on the lookout for me and my team there as well. And Jim, it's been awesome chatting. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story. And again, just really inspirational to see how your family has dealt with some truly difficult, tragic circumstances in life, and managed to turn it around and make a difference not only in the pet community, but in this broader society as well through your charitable donations. Just really cool to see.
Well, thank you. It's been great speaking with you. Yeah, we've been really blessed, and just want to improve the lives of people and pets, right? So hey, if you're ever in the area, love to play golf sometime.
I would love it. Yeah, I love Portsmouth. I definitely need to get down there at some point, and when I do, we'll make a point to hit the links and
awesome.
Get out and you'll probably beat me, but that's all right.
Hey, it's all fun. That's a good thing about golf.
Exactly.
It's fun regardless. But hey, thank you very much for having me, though.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jim, and thanks everyone for listening. This is Peter Kenseth with another episode of Pet Working. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you again soon with our next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.